Hi, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography based here in beautiful, sunny Naples, Florida. Canon recently introduced its first real, affordable, and value-oriented wide-angle lens with the EFS 10-18mm f4.5 to 5.6, and here it is. Designed for Canon's APS-C size sensor models like the Canon Rebel series, the 7D, the XXD series like the 70D that I haven't made it to here, the 10-18 is clearly aimed at enthusiasts looking for an affordable, first-party, wide-angle photography option. With a full-frame equivalent field of view of 16 to 28.8 millimeters and at only $299, can the 10-18 deliver image quality that rivals some of the more expensive wide-angle lenses out there? Well, let's have a look. So first up is the build quality. And for starters, it's really lightweight for such a lens, coming in at just under 9 ounces, which for a wide-angle lens makes this thing downright, dainty by comparison. Part of the reason why it may be so lean, or why it's so lean, may be because that the whole thing is made out of plastic. Even the lens mount is made out of plastic. Strangely, however, it doesn't feel cheap. In fact, it's actually a better grade of plastic than you might expect for something so relatively inexpensive. The 10-18 is not weather sealed, but at only $299, there's really no big surprise there. Further, like every other consumer lens from Canon, the 10-18 does not include a lens hood. That is unfortunately a $25 accessory. Now on the plus side, Canon has included image stabilization, which given its narrower aperture, has the potential to come in handy in lower light situations. I said lower light situations, not low light situations. The focus ring is really thin and it's not that tactile. It really can be a challenge to use. The zoom ring, on the other hand, is considerably wider and it's reasonably well dampened. Now, moving to the front of the lens, we can see that the filter threads are also made out of plastic as well. And the front thread is 67 millimeters in diameter. The EFS designation means that the lens cannot be used with Canon's full-frame line of cameras like the 5D and the 1DX, or the APS-H models like the 1D series prior to the 1DX. On the inside, there are 14 elements in 11 groups. Those elements include one ultra-low dispersion element and one aspherical element. Canon says they've added enhanced lens coatings to reduce flare and ghosting for maintain image contrast and color fidelity. Okay. The aperture is variable and ranges from f4.5 to f22 at 10 millimeters and f5.6 to f29 at 18 millimeters. Speaking of the aperture, there are 7 rounded aperture blades, which makes for some decent bokeh rendering, but you really don't buy a wide-angle lens for its dazzling bokeh ability, as most of the shot is going to be in focus. The lens also allows for full-time manual focus, even in AF mode. Now, this all sounds impressive, and there's a lot here for the money. But in the end, to keep the price low, Canon did not use grade A materials to build the 10-18. But at $299, they're considerably better than you'd expect, and it's tightly assembled. And at that price, really, who's complaining? So for build, we're going to give the 10-18 a solid 7.5 out of 10. Next up is autofocus speed and accuracy. To keep prices down, Canon decided to go with an STM motor, which is a step up from the motor that's usually included in the kit lens, which is loud and buzzy. There is, however, a newer 18-55 which does have a stepper motor. Canon seems to be implementing the STM usage across their consumer line of lenses, which to me is a positive. Generally speaking, and I've mentioned this on other wide-angle lens reviews that I've done, in wide-angle photography, you're usually shooting still subjects, so focus speed isn't always a prime consideration. Fast focus is nice, but it's usually not going to be a deal breaker. Secondly, you're usually trying to get a lot in focus, meaning that you're going to be shooting at anywhere from maybe f6.3 to f9 or f10, meaning a really wide depth of field. And as such, most of what you're going to be shooting is going to be in focus anyway. The STM motors that I've used on other lenses don't focus all that quickly. However, maybe it's the relatively wide depth of field in the images, but the focus with the 10-18 is essentially instantaneous, and it's so silent I can't even hear it. Combined with the dual pixel focusing ability of the 70D and the servo AF mode, it's just dynamite for movie mode. They really make for a great combination. Now, it's one thing to talk about AF speed, it's another thing to demo it. I'm going to set the minimum focus distance here, and I'm going to focus on something far away. The beep is on, and here goes. Now, when you hear that, That's pretty fast. Now I'm going to set it to infinity, which actually it's already at, and I'm going to focus on something very close, and here goes. I mean, that's not only more than adequate, it's pretty much instantaneous. It's also deadly accurate. The STM motor, in my opinion, offers a really nice compromise. It's not ultra fast, it just feels ultra fast on a wide-angle lens because the depth of what's in focus is pretty wide, which makes the STM perfectly adequate and non-intrusive at all, as the STM motor is completely silent. All in, it's really good. So for AF speed and accuracy, the 10-18 is going to get a 9.5 out of 10. Alright, so up next is optical quality and the quality of the results. In spite of its low price point and outward physical shortcomings, the 10-18 is actually an optical surprise. I shoot a lot at f8 and I'm getting really good center sharpness and reasonably good edge sharpness. Now, is it up there with the higher end offerings from Canon, Nikon, and Tokina? Well, no. But the differences between this lens and the $1,500 to $2,000 offerings from Canon and Nikon are definitely there, but are they the kind of differences that your viewers will notice? Probably not. The lens seems to manage flare reasonably well, especially for a wide-angle lens. So maybe there really is something to Canon's claim of special lens coatings. But, as with all of my reviews, it's one thing for me to talk about the optical quality, it's another thing for me to show you the optical quality. The next minute or so is going to be a series of stills and video clips showcasing the optical qualities of the EFS 10-18mm. Now, I'll let you be the judge, but to my eyes, the 10-18 is optically exceptional, especially for the money. So last up is value. And at $299, you have a consumer-oriented lens riddled with compromises. For example, it's made out of plastic from the filter thread all the way down to the lens mount. It has a slower but perfectly adequate, silent, and accurate STM focus motor, and it's not weather sealed. Now, internally, however, it's another story entirely, as the results the lens are capable of producing are in fact surprisingly better than the lens's price point would indicate. We usually define value in photography as a lens or a camera or piece of equipment that's capable of producing quality results in spite of the inherent shortcomings that usually coincide with a low price point. Given the results that we're able to achieve with the lens, then we would have to say that the 10-18 fits the very definition of value and in fact is a big success and win for Canon. Oh, and it also has image stabilization too. So for value, Canon hits it way out of the park, and the 10-18 gets an easy 10 out of 10. Okay. Well, it's that time again. Time to recap this review and draw some conclusions about the Canon EFS 10-18mm. So, here goes. The build quality. It's clearly not professional grade, nor was it ever intended to be. But Canon had to cut costs somewhere to produce a lens like this for just $299. And where Canon really cut costs was in the housing. It's made out of a lightweight plastic, which lends itself well to the lens's paltry weight of just under 9 ounces. It's really nice if you're going to walk around with it all day, not so nice for long-term durability. Even the filter thread and lens mount are made out of plastic too. There's also no weather sealing, but surprisingly Canon did include image stabilization. And remember, because it's plastic, you have to wonder if it could survive the day-to-day rigors of a working professional. The focus ring, to my hand, is really thin and not that tactile. It's just kind of not fluid at all. The zoom ring, on the other hand, is wide and well dampened and very fluid. I picked up the lens hood for $25. All in, it's about what you'd expect from a $299 lens, so for build, we gave it a 7.5 out of 10. AF speed and accuracy. The STM motor that's included is very quiet, reasonably quick, and it works exceptionally well in video mode, specifically with the dual pixel technology found in the 70D. It has full-time manual focus override, even in AF mode. Now, it's not as fast as a Canon ultrasonic, but it's also not as buzzy as some of the other lower-end models from Canon, like the highly regarded 50mm f1.8, the Plastic Fantastic. Fortunately, when you're considering a wide-angle lens, focus speed isn't usually on the list of priorities. All in, it's an adequate and accurate performance, so for focus speed and accuracy, we gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Optical quality and the quality of the results. In my opinion, it's downright excellent, especially relative to the price. I'm getting sharp results straight from f4.5, and things stay great until about f11, where diffraction really sets in and starts to degrade the image quality and image sharpness. With a couple of tweaks in Lightroom, getting to the promised land is a snap. Overall, it's a much better performance than the price point would indicate. So for optical quality, it gets a 9.5 out of 10. For the quality of the results, it's a 10 out of 10. Value. At just $299, in my opinion, the 10-18 sets a new benchmark for price to image quality ratio. When you consider the majority of wide-angle lenses, specifically from Canon, startup price is much higher than this, then the 10-18 is nothing short of an amazing value. Major pros include a low price, excellent optics, a silent and reasonably fast and accurate focus motor, and decent build for the money. On the downside is a relatively narrow and variable aperture. There's no weather sealing, and even though the quality of the plastics is a notch above the average kit lens, they're still plastic down to the mount and filter threads. Canon had to cut costs somewhere, so they sacrificed the build quality. But all in, at this price point, the 10-18 represents an outstanding value from the folks over at Canon. So for value, Canon just knocks it out of the park and easily earns a 10 out of 10. Overall, it's a 46.5 out of 50 and earns our highly recommended rating. The final word. If you think about getting into landscape, real estate, or architectural photography, and you're just starting out, then I think you have to consider the 10-18 from Canon. It's a low-cost, high-quality lens with only a few compromises. I wish it were built a little bit better, but image quality like this is a bit of a shock at only $299. It's nice to see Canon diving into the value game head first with a 10-18, and this lens is a winner. Congrats, Canon, it's a job well done. This is Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based here in beautiful, sunny Naples, Florida. If you like these reviews, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, happy shooting.